Yay, okay. I don't know if you actually cut out or if it was just on my end. Makes me a little bit nervous for my internet connection out here. So if I do get cut out, we've got a couple of videos we can stick on there, and we have a special guest today. Lexi Siegel is with us as well. So if I get cut out, we'll go and do that stuff. And I'm actually pretty close to the buildings today, so I could run back over there and get on my computer, and maybe I could grab a couple skulls or uh, pull the snake out or something like that. I don't know. But anyways, welcome. It's a beautiful morning. Buenos dias, everyone. I wish you were out here with me because really it is gorgeous. It is so nice to be out here, beginning of spring, when the different flowers are starting to bloom. Um, out in the scrub, it's green all year round. When you're in Florida, it's green all year round. But what you might not realize is that towards the end of the winter, that green gets pretty dull looking. Those leaves start to have a lot of like brown spots on them, and they're just not looking so healthy. And they fall. They fall off, and then they grow back really fast. So there's never a time where there's a whole bunch of trees without leaves on them. But right now, there's all this new spring growth, and everything just looks so fresh out here, bright green. It's beautiful. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Every week, every Tuesday morning, I'm out here with my cell phone and selfie stick, getting out into nature and walking nature trails and just kind of seeing what is there to look at. Sometimes we see animal tracks or there's good flowers to look at. And I do bring this cool lens I have, a macro lens that I attach to my phone right here, and take a close look at all kinds of cool stuff. We also always have a guest with us. Today, like I said, that's Lexi Siegel. She's a plant ecologist here. And so we have a lot going on. So welcome if it is your first time here. I know we've got some people from other parts of the country. The Rileys are back again from Virginia, and maybe we've got some folks from other places too. So I'd love to see, have you type here, when you think of Florida, when you think of different habitats or plants or animals in Florida, what do you think of? Think about the first thing that comes to your mind, either a certain kind of habitat or plant or animal, whatever, just like the first one or the second one maybe that pops into your mind. Type that into the chat. I'm so curious because I know I've been in Florida for 8 years. Originally, I'm from Syracuse, New York. And when I thought of Florida, I thought of beaches. I thought of manatees and beaches. I'd say that is totally like what was in my head. Also Disney World, but that's not a natural habitat. But beaches and manatees. Where oh, somebody wrote in the chat. Yes, beaches, skyscrapers, right? The urban habitats. But then I moved down here and started working at Archbold Biological Station, which is not on the ocean. It's right in the middle of the state on this white sandy spot that used to be a sand island a million years ago and is now a habitat island. And I just learned that there's so much more to Florida than just the oceans. Not that the oceans aren't amazing. Who doesn't love going to the ocean? Super cool when if you ever get a chance to do it. And manatees are very cool. But the scrub is its own amazing, unique place. In fact, it's very unique. This part of Florida, where I am, Highlands County and Polk County in the middle of the state here, has a really high concentration of rare plants that you don't see, anywhere else in Florida or anywhere else anywhere. So we'll take a look at what's around us here today and see what's going on. Now, I did just mention that it's springtime and there's a lot of growth. And one of the things I like about that is springtime means greens. And that means that if you're hungry, you've got some food out here. So this one right here is called a smilax. And it's this this vine that you see growing all around out here. And normally you don't want to eat it. Like, you don't want to eat these big leaves it's got here. And it has thorns too, so you gotta be careful. But in the spring and the summer, you've got that fresh new growth at the end, like that, and pretty tasty. Be great if you put it on a salad, adds like a little bit of brightness to it. So spring is here. I have a flower in front of me I want to show y'all. This is a flower that's found. Greenbrier is another name for it. Yep, Sarah. This is a flower that is found almost exclusively in Florida. It's a Florida endemic. Though I was looking at iNaturalist and seeing people's photos of where they were finding it, and I saw 99.99% in Florida and 1 in Georgia. I was like, did somebody plant that one? I don't know. But you can see this pretty little flower here. And we have 2 different kinds at Archbold of these. They're called pawpaws. We have 2 different kinds. I'm pretty sure this is the netted pawpaw. It's a little smaller than the scrub pawpaw. And Lexi's going to show a picture of the scrub pawpaw when she gets on here in a little bit. It's a little smaller. The leaves are a little smaller too. It is tough in the spring sometimes because all these leaves are brand new. So sometimes it's hard to know how big they will get, but I'm pretty sure it's the netted pawpaw. These are pollinated by insects, and what they really end up attracting are beetles. So sometimes when you poke your head around in these, you'll see beetles in there. And I was just kind of poking around before I got on. I didn't see any beetles in this one, but I will turn my camera around so you can see up a little closer here what this looks like. Got my macro lens on. Here we go. These beautiful kind of egg cream colored flowers, and we can even see, what is that? There's something moving. Okay, can you see in the inner part of the flower there's some tiny little, I don't know if it's probably an insect. Oh, he went and hid behind the back. Did you see that? Could you see that movement? What's that? Maybe the larva of something. Oh gosh. That's what I love about this macro lens, because I've looked at these flowers. I've looked at this stuff many, many times, but once you get this lens on, everything looks different. Here again is the outside of the flower. You can see real pretty kind of cream colored on the outside there. Let's see, I've got another one over here. I'm going to move. There's actually a few of these blooming. Let's take a peek at another one here. And this one looks like it's a little bit closed up, but I'm going to just try to open it up with my finger a little bit. Is there anything in here? It's kind of hard to do with only one hand. There we go. See the beautiful colors on the inside. There's the inner part of the flower again. The pollen. Nothing moving around on this one. You can see how small these flowers are here. You can see my fingers next to it. Okay, all right, I'm going to switch this back around. Oh, let me try again. Switch there. Hi, there I am. Yeah, so the netted pawpaw, either that or the scrub pawpaw, but pretty sure it's the netted pawpaw. They don't have a real strong smell. I've heard that they're supposed to have a kind of a little bit of a different smell than most flowers, and that's true. Some people say they smell a little bit like rotting animal or something. I find it very pleasant. I like the smell of them. So I don't know what that says about me. The other thing I want to show you, I have shown before, is our cactus. When people think of Florida, they might not think of cactuses or cacti. And that's one of the reasons I was asking, is that out here in the middle of Florida, we've got lots of sand, So some ways it's a little like a desert out here. And we've got prickly pear cactus. We've got a lot of it, actually. And it's just starting to bloom, though unfortunately I couldn't find any in bloom this morning when I was hiking around out here. The one planted at my house is blooming. That doesn't help us. But I know Lexi has a photo of this she's going to show you. But I want to show you something else. I don't want to focus on the blooming part right now. This is a plant that has so many things going on with it, and is so cool for all kinds of reasons. So my first question to you is: have any of you ever eaten? Have any of you ever eaten prickly pear? Because you can eat. There's a nice fruit, and you can even go to the store and buy juice, prickly pear juice, or some people eat the pads of the prickly pear as well. So if you've ever eaten prickly pear juice or the pads or the fruit, I'd love to see it right in the chat. Prickly pear is something that has some health benefits too. The researchers are still figuring this stuff out, but looks like that there's a chemical in there that might help with diabetes, with cholesterol and sugar levels, which is pretty cool. What I want to focus on is actually this white blob right there. I'm going to zoom in on it in a minute. This white blob, and there's some other white blobs on here too. These look like snot. And I remember showing this actually about almost a year ago now when we first starting these virtual field trips, showing this. So if you know what that white blob is, you can put it in chat. But sometimes when you're looking at prickly pear, you'll see these little white snot balls on there and probably think maybe it's just bird poop or something. It's not. There's actually a little insect inside of there, a little scale insect that makes that. And what that white stuff is its protection. It helps protect it from drying out here. Maybe it protects it from insects too, I'm not sure. It does have a special chemical inside of it that it uses to help keep ants and other insects from eating it. There's actually a moth that the caterpillar is immune to this chemical in here, this acid that it has. And then scientists think that it might actually then use that same chemical for its own defense, just like a monarch butterfly does with milkweeds, if you know about that. And there was a researcher here named Thomas Eisner that was researching that. Okay, I'm going to spin this around. Here we go. Get up nice and close here. There we go. Oop, get back in focus. There we are. And I'm noticing this little drop. Looks kind of like an insect poo that's on there. I'm not sure what it is. It looks wet. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. Also, let's just take a look at it. Just the cactus itself. Here, this is up here. We've got some new parts of the cactus growing. Very cool. I'm going to grab this with my fingers here. Try to pull off, and I can't see because I'm trying to grab it. Come on. See the inside. Oh, here's one right here. Oh, here it is. Okay. Got one insect right there. Hard to see, covered up in all the gunk. But I apologize to this, but I am going to kill this insect because I want to show you something. Here it is. I'm gonna just crush it. Take a look. What do you see here? Look at that. Look at that color. I mentioned that this insect has a chemical in it that helps protect it from predators. That's what this is. It's not blood. It's a special chemical. And it makes this really pretty red color. It's pretty amazing. I'm going to switch back here. that that red color has been used for hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of years to create dye. And I could tell you about it, but I've got two little videos I'm going to put up so you can see how this actually works, how they make dye out of this. We're going to show, we're going to show two videos, but together they'll only be about 4 minutes long. So we're going to jump into two videos I found on YouTube from a couple different educator YouTube sites. And I just thought these are really cool.
Bugs in your food? Well, I think most of us have heard that there's a certain percentage of bugs that find their way into our food supply. But we don't see them, they're there accidentally, and it doesn't really bother us. But what about the bugs that are in your food on purpose? If you purchase a food item, like this yogurt, if it's red, stop and take a look at the ingredients list to see what dye is making it red. Now, it could be a synthetic dye made from something like a coal tar sludge or a petroleum distillate, or it could be made from cochineal bugs. The cochineal bugs, like I have here in front of me, this is a very common food dye as well. Now, living or dead, cochineal bugs don't really look like anything. But look what happens when you take some of these bugs and we grind them up into a powder. We'll put some on this lid here. Now watch this. We're going to add a few drops of water and watch what happens. In just seconds, it turns into a brilliant scarlet red dye. Now, we have the early Indians of Mexico to thank for this discovery, but it was the Spanish that brought it to the rest of the world. Now, how do you determine if cochineal dye is being used in your food? Just look at the ingredients list and search for these key words. Carminic acid, or it could say carmine, or like in the case of this Jell-O, they just went right out ahead and said cochineal extract, or bug juice. Now, before you run to the bathroom to rinse your mouth out, stop and take a look at the ingredients list. You may be rinsing it out with even more bugs. Now, as distasteful as this may seem, just remember this. Cochineal dye has been around for centuries. It is a natural, renewable resource, and in my opinion, it's just plain cool. So from the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, thank you for observing a moment of science.
This kilogram for 600 or 1,000 cactus.
The cochineal, do they only eat the cactus? That's the only thing they eat?
Yes, only the nopal.
Yeah.
Not exists in another plant.
So after they fed on the cactus for 3 months, what do they look like?
If you like to see,
Yeah.
please.
So how do you harvest these guys then?
It's very simple.
Yeah.
I take the nopal and use the brush.
Ah. So how many are usually on one cactus leaf like this?
Maybe I collect 3 grams,
3 grams?
3 or 4 grams.
Can I try?
Yes, yes, yes. It's,
Ah. Very gently?
yes.
They come off pretty easily.
Carefully.
The harvested cochineal bugs need to dry out for several days, and then it's time to process them. After harvesting the cochineal, Manuel demonstrated the traditional way that they can be crushed and used to dye clothing.
Of the alum.
Thanks, Manuel. I know my cochineal is ready for the next step of turning it into a dye. I just got to figure out how to get out of here.
All right, thanks, Margaret. So we skipped the first part of that video, but he went to Mexico, where they had that farm, prickly pear cactus farm, and like the other guy said in the other video, they've been doing that in Mexico for a very long time. And then after the Spanish started taking it from Mexico and shipping it around, it was this whole big secret where the other countries didn't know how they were making that red dye. And they'd even have pirates going and capturing Spanish ships and getting the cochineal bugs, and they couldn't figure out what they were. They're like, what? Because they were dried and they don't look like most insects because they're scale insects. So it's like, what is this stuff? Are they seeds? They still couldn't figure it out. It has a really interesting history. Also, the redcoats in the American Revolution, the redcoats that the British wore, those were made with cochineal dye. And I saw there was a question of what was the name of that acid? Carminic acid. So when you're looking on the ingredients lists for yogurts and all kinds of things, it might say carmine on there, or carminic acid, cochineal, or red. I think it's red 4, not 40. I think it goes by red 4. Red 40 is a different one. Well, I came out to the spot right here because I've got a couple of bits of log here from a pine tree that had fallen over years ago, and I'm going to just flip it over and see if maybe there's something cool under there. Last time I tried this, we found a slug, and it was amazing because with the macro lens, the slug's skin was like really cool looking. So who knows what we'll find, but we'll flip it over here, and then I'll grab this, switch the lens over, and maybe we'll see something cool. Maybe we won't. It's a mystery. Let's try it. Okay. 3, 2, 1. I'm looking through here. Are there any slugs this time? Don't see any. Oh, we got millipede. Oh man, it's so fast. Got a centipede. Oh gosh, it's too fast. Try to switch it around. This one looks like a centipede. That's so fast. Ah! There it goes, there it goes. Oh, it just fell off. You never know what you're gonna find. Okay, I'm gonna try. I've got one more here. First, I'm gonna flip this back. We get these little micro habitats. It's normally so hot out here. It can, even though it's humid, feels humid to me, it's also pretty dry, really. But you get these little micro habitats when you've got a piece of wood like this laying out here for years at a time, and then you'll find all kinds of cool little critters in there. All right, let's try. Got one more here, and we'll see if I get anything here. Something a little smaller. Let's see. There's definitely been insects living in here. I can see they've made some burrows. Oh, here we go. We got something. Flip this around. There we go. That one is a millipede there. So we had a centipede. I think that last one was a centipede. This one's definitely a millipede. Oh, look at him go. Wow. It's like, I don't like the sun. Go back in there. Very cool. Oh, yeah. Nice. Oh, that was great. That's like finding some treasure there. Well, I want to introduce our guest. We've got Lexi Siegel here. She is a longtime arch boulder, originally a summer camper, then an intern in an education program. now she works in the plant lab. So, Lexi, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Can you guys see me?
Hey, yes. All right, I'm going to turn my stuff off here and get it over to you for a bit.
Alrighty, good morning, everyone. So as Dustin said, I'm a research assistant in the plant ecology program. I started off coming to Archbold when I was about 7 years old and went all the way through all of the years of camping, and then I was eventually a camp counselor, and then in the herpetology lab I was an intern, and I've kind of volunteered and helped out in all the labs in some way, shape, or form over the years. But I am now an RA. So a big part of my job is actually rare species searches. So we go to these sites owned by FWC and we look around, see what we can find, if anything is rare, if anything needs to have any kind of special protections or management for it. And I actually got most of these pictures last week when we were on a rare species search in the Lake Placid scrub. So this first picture is, this is the cactus flower that Dustin showed you the plant earlier. This is what the flower looks like. Usually there's a lot more pollinators on them. They're super important for pollination in the scrub. They're usually covered with beetles. This one I was lucky enough to get a picture without any beetles on it. I think it's really pretty like that. Fun fact about the cactus is, so the prickly pear is the most common in Florida, but we have 2 endangered species of cactus as well. Not here in Lake Placid, but they're on the coasts and down in the Keys. So that's kind of cool. If you could go ahead and switch to the next slide. All right, so this is the netted pawpaw. Dustin kind of showed you guys one earlier, and I'm glad that he showed it to you because you can really see the size of the flower when he was holding it in his hand. They're very small compared to the scrub pawpaw. So this is a really cool plant. We actually have a collaboration research project going on with Neil Patterson up in Virginia. So Neil Patterson, he has been working on a horticulture species of pawpaw for decades. So he's been breeding pawpaw specifically for the fruits, trying to make the fruits a little bit bigger and more commercially available. And now that he's done that, he's working on an ornamental species of pawpaw made for landscaping. So in Virginia, all of the pawpaws are a really deep maroon, almost burgundy color, and all of our flowers down here in Florida are white. So he asked me to send him some stem samples, and he's hoping to graft them onto another species of pawpaw's roots to make a species that is hardy for Virginia, but still has these really beautiful white flowers. So that's a really kind of cool collaboration that's going on with our labs right now. I see a question. Yes, it's pawpaw as in P-A-W-P-A-W. All right, go ahead with the next slide. So this is the scrub pawpaw, or it's also called the big flower pawpaw. You can kind of see why. That's my hand underneath it. They are gigantic compared to the netted pawpaw. They get over 8 feet tall. They're basically like small trees. They're gigantic. They're beautiful. I love the flowers on this one because they almost look like magnolia flowers to me. They're kind of droopy. And if you were to open up the flower and kind of spread it open, you can still see some of the maroon coloration in the middle of them as well. I didn't want to do that with this particular flower because it was kind of on its last legs. It was wilting, so I didn't want to mess with it too much. But yeah, we have another collaboration going on with this species as well. Dr. Kate Goodrich and her postdoc students are doing genetics research with the pawpaws, and actually for both species, they've asked us to collect leaf samples and send them to another researcher over in Belgium to get some genetic material from them. So again, that's kind of another cool collaboration we have going on with our labs right now. All right, you can go ahead and go to the next one. All right, this is called sky blue lupin. This is an interesting plant. It has a really strong response to fires. So about a year after any prescribed burn, these plants absolutely explode. They take over areas after prescribed burns. And we had an intern a few years ago, Marissa, she did an experiment to see if it was actually the heat that would stimulate the seeds to germinate or if it was the smoke. And her research kind of showed that it was a combination of the two. So the seeds, so the plant grows and it drops seeds on the ground and they stay there until it burns. That's called a seed bank. So when the seed bank gets to a certain temperature and also gets the smoke from a prescribed fire, that's when all of the seeds germinate all at once. And they're kind of like a lamb's ear. They're very fuzzy. The leaves are really soft and they have a bluish sheen to them. And then they have these beautiful blue flowers where it gets its name from, sky blue lupin. So go ahead, next slide. All right, and this is my favorite flower in the scrub. This is from the pygmy fringe tree. Its scientific name is Cyananthus pygmaeus. Now this tree is very difficult to find when it's not flowering. It looks really similar to a lot of the oaks or even the pawpaw sometimes. The leaves are really similar in shape and color. And when it's not flowering, the only way to tell it apart from everything else around it is where the stem and the leaf connect. There's a dark spot. And that is the only way to tell it when it's not flowering. However, when it's flowering, it has the most unique flower structure of any plant in the Florida scrub. It's very fringy. All of the white parts, those are actually the petals. And it looks like a little pom-pom almost. And that is all the flowering pictures I had to show you guys.
Thank you very much, Lexi, and she'll stick around for some questions in just a couple of minutes. Since we saw the millipede out there, I thought, ooh, I'm gonna run back to our lodge because in this building, we have all of these pictures here, and here's a scrub millipede up close. And actually this room is the Tom Eisner room. And you notice there are framed photos all in here that were taken by Tom. He's the same researcher that I mentioned who was working on the little moth the caterpillar that could eat the cochineal bug. He passed away a few years ago, I think 2011, but he had a huge impact on science for studying how animals defended themselves using chemicals. So he was like old school scientist where he'd sniff things, and if it smells kind of interesting, maybe he'd lick the millipede a little bit and see if it tasted weird. And that's how you could start to identify, like, ooh, this has some interesting chemical in it. And then he would analyze the chemistry and figure out what these chemicals were and try to figure out how the insects use them. So here we go here. So millipede is an arthropod, just like a centipede. The centipedes generally are flatter, where the millipedes are around her body. The millipedes have more legs per segment. So you see all the little segments here on the millipede's body. They will have, I believe it's two pairs of legs for every segment, and then a centipede only has one. Yes, I see in the comments Sarah is putting Tom Eisner's book, For the Love of Insects. That is an amazing book. I don't know, I think most kids would probably find it a little bit boring unless they're really into insects. But as an adult, it is an amazing book, and there's a whole chapter just about archbold. What he found with this millipede, and don't see it on this photo, is maybe a little bit over here. Well, you're not going to see that. Anyways, with the millipede, they have a defense too. They put out little drops of, I think maybe they're like oil, but they put out these little drops of a liquid chemical, and then that helps defend them from predators. These are one of the main decomposers in the scrub. The scrub doesn't have that rich, dark soil like you get in a lot of other places, so you don't have a lot of worms in there. I mean, it's just sand in most places. But what you do get are these millipedes hiding under the leaf litter, and at nighttime, they're all about crunching and eating the old leaves that are on the ground. and recycling the leaves. So we have a lot to be grateful for these millipedes. Well, I think that's about it on time. Ooh, we even went like a couple minutes late there. So let's get to the questions, and we'll bring Lexi back on and see. I think I saw a couple of questions pop up as we were talking, but Margaret, maybe you could help us find some of those.
Hello, yes, absolutely. The first one I'm seeing is for Lexi, and do you see any associated increase in particular animals or insects or bird species when the lupine bursts into bloom over huge areas?
Actually, yes, we do. This research project, I wasn't super involved with it, but I did go out and help on 1 or 2 of the field days for Marissa's experiment. And in the lupine patches, so it's basically just one giant patch of lupin, and there's no other plants in that area. And on every single plant, there are these little caterpillars, and hundreds of them. I have no idea what species they were, but there's this species of caterpillar that eats the lupins and just explodes in population after the fires.
And then another question is there a smell to the pawpaws? The Riley family mentioned that in Virginia, they kind of have a bad smell. So I was wondering about down here.
I'm kind of a bad person to ask for that because I don't have a very good sense of smell already. Probably with the bigger species, the big flower pawpaw, I think they kind of smell really sweet to me. But again, my sense of smell's sort of messed up. Probably someone better to ask would be my interns when they come out and help me with that project.
So I know that I've read too that they're supposed to have kind of a bad smell to attract beetles, like carrion beetles for pollinators. But every time I smell them, I think they smell good. the scrub pawpaws, the bigger ones, and that little netted one I smelled this morning, I like that smell.
And then with the pawpaws, do either of you know what the origin of that name is?
Yes, oh, sorry. Do you know it, Lexi?
I was going to say it's from the name of the fruit, but you go ahead.
Well, yeah. But the pawpaw is, it comes from papaya. So it bounced around from a couple different languages. And papaya, I don't know if that was Spanish or I don't know where papaya came from, but it was Europeans saying, "Oh, looks like a papaya," basically, and calling it a pawpaw instead of a papaya. So it's one of those weird things where people hear one thing and end up translating it a different way.
So there's been a lot of discussion about eating prickly pear cactus in the chat. And I think, so Karen asked, can you scrub off or peel off the outer skin to avoid the hairs? And also just, I don't know if either of you have eaten the cactus just from the wild, not from a store or anything.
I did once when I was a kid, and again, I got cactus hairs. They're called glockids in my tongue, so I never did it after that. I'm gonna stick to the kind that's in the store personally.
I also, when I first moved to Florida, just plucked one of the fruits off and ate that, and it was very tasty. But even those fruits have some of the little tiny needles on them. And they were all stuck in my lips for an hour, a couple hours, and I was trying to pull them out. I've never eaten the pads, but if you go to a Mexican grocery store, which we have in this part of Florida, you can see they're selling the pads there. And I don't know if they're the same species. So the genus for the prickly pears is Opuntia. And I think there's hundreds actually of Opuntia species out there, different kinds of prickly pear. You can see in the video I showed you, those prickly pears looked a little bit different. They were longer and flatter than ours is the humifera, something like that is our Florida one. That's on the East Coast. So I don't know the differences between all of them or like how you prepare them, but if you can go to a Mexican grocery store, they'll have them there, and you won't have the spikes on them.
So a little bit of a different direction from the cactus, but talking about the centipede versus millipede. Someone noticed that the centipede's flat and the millipede's round, and they're wondering if that's a common characteristic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is. I don't know why it's like that. They're, and one thing I should say is they're not insects. So I was mentioning Thomas Eisner studied insects, and a lot of times all those little critters get called bugs, right? And it's okay to call them a bug, but they're arthropods, but they're different kinds of arthropods. And just like when I was a kid, I also always loved the little potato bugs, and it's another kind of arthropod. So they look a lot alike, but they're different. And I'm trying to remember when it was, a few 100 million years ago. I think this was before, it was either right before the dinosaurs or right after. I think it was right before the dinosaurs. Maybe it was right after. The dinosaurs went extinct around 65 million years ago. There were huge centipedes, talking like this big, like huge centipedes. And centipedes are carnivorous and they're carnivores, and they have poison or venom. I forget what you call it with them, but they're something you would not mess around with, a 3-foot long centipede. And then the millipedes, at least I know like the scrub ones are vegetarian, and I think that's pretty normal with millipedes. Maybe there's some that aren't vegetarian, but so millipedes are rounder, vegetarian, centipedes flatter, and don't mess with them.
And then another insect question is, do you know the name of the cochineal eating moth?
It has a funny name. It's, what's that, a bird fly? It has a funny name. I can't come up with it off the top of my head, but I'll put it in the email that we send out to people, and I'll stick it in the comments on Facebook too. It's like a short, I don't remember what it is, but I'll find it.
And then I think I only have one last question for Lexi, which is a little bit personally for me, but so I grew up in Virginia, and pretty much you would not see any blooming flowers in the winter. Occasionally some berries, like depending, but really just not that many flowers. And something I really like about Florida is that you can see some flowering during the winter here because it's warm. Are there certain seasonal differences that really make a difference between our really warm winter here and then like spring?
Yeah, the major difference here in Florida compared to other states, so we don't really have like a true winter. It gets cold for a couple weeks and occasionally we'll get a freeze, but the main difference here is in rainfall. So the winter time is our dry season, and then summertime is starting up our wet season again. But when it's dry, we have different sets of flowers that are blooming. So for example, a lot of our demography projects that start September through December, those plants are blooming at that time. The Dicerandra species, which are all in the mint family, those are blooming around then, starting in the fall, and they'll go all the way through December. And Eryngium species, which is another rare species that we do demography on, that blooms in December. And then once it starts getting wetter, those flowers will kind of, die back a little bit. They still sort of bloom up all the way until the summer, but not as intensely as before. And then we'll start to get like our blueberry plants will start flowering, the pawpaws. Later into summer, we'll get tar flowers and palafoxias and things like that. So the main difference here is because of the rainfall.
Oh, and a follow-up question to that is, what do you mean by demography?
Oh, yeah. So demography is the type of research we do where we follow one specific population of a given species basically until that population no longer exists. So a lot of our demography projects were actually started when my boss, Eric, first came to Archbold in the 70s, and he immediately started following these populations of plants and doing things like their life stages, how much they would grow every year, how much they were flowering, if they were producing seeds, things like that. So we'll take all of the plant's life history data for each individual plant in that population, and we'll follow it, for 30 plus years. And a lot of our data sets are really old because they've started in the 70s. So we have a really good set of long-term data here.
And then you and I actually talked about this yesterday. which I thought was interesting, is just you mentioning the importance of doing these demography projects while the flower's in bloom. If you wanted to talk on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of what I mentioned with the pygmy fringe tree. A lot of the times it's really difficult to find our plants when they're not flowering because everything kind of looks the same. Everything is like green and, you know, the leaves, like you can sort of tell with the leaf shape the differences, but it's so much easier to find your plants when they are flowering because the flowers are so distinct. And every single flower in the scrub is different looking. There's not two flowers that look close together, you know? So that's why we schedule to do these demography projects when everything is flowering so that they're easier to find. And then we can kind of get that, that reproductive data as well. So if something is flowering, if there's new plants that are not flowering yet, if they're all producing seeds, if maybe something happened and plants are not producing seeds that year, that's also important to note.
Awesome. So I believe that is all the questions that I see for now. If we somehow missed one, of course, Dustin and I will answer it in the email that we send out after. Dustin or Lexi, do you have any parting words?
I just want to say thank you, Lexi, for coming on. And Lexi, I think you should tell them your bit of news that is sad for me, but exciting for you.
Oh, okay. Well, I have been accepted into a master's program at University of Miami. So starting in August, I will be leaving Archbold and going to grad school.
Woohoo!
Yeah, hey, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, they got cool plants and stuff down there too. So plus lots of ocean.
Yes.
Yeah, so thanks, Lexi. Thanks everybody for coming on. We will be back again next Tuesday. We only have a few more of these left before we take a break. So we've got April, and then we're stopping because then we've got summer camp, the summer ecology club starting in June. So my time will be all focused on that. We'll have these field trips, but they'll be exclusively for the summer science kids. So for all the adults that tune in, I know a lot of our watchers actually are adults. I'm sorry. We'll be gone for a bit, and then I'm sure in the fall we'll come back on and start doing these again. But we still have, I think, 4 more before we take a break. So hasta pronto, amigos. See you later, friends. And thank you.
I just want to say, I know, thank you. I just want to say thank you for bearing with us on our internet connection today. I think Dustin and I have been a little bit spotty. That's the hard part about working in the middle of a really remote, beautiful area is that you don't have great Wi-Fi. So thank you everyone for bearing with that today. And we will see you next week. Thank you so much, Lexi. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.